The cost of understanding, and why we sometimes respond to our own associations instead of another person's thought. Understanding another person is rarely as simple as understanding the words they have spoken. Every utterance is the visible endpoint of a much larger process. Before someone formulates a sentence, they may have already made several distinctions, accepted certain premises, rejected alternative interpretations, and connected ideas that have been developing in their mind for hours, months, or even years. The listener usually does not see this process. They receive only its final trace, a sentence, a paragraph, a question, or perhaps a short message written on a phone. So, to understand that message fully, the listener must reconstruct at least part of the path that produced it. They need to recognize which concepts are being used, what distinctions mattered, what assumptions have already been made, what kind of question is actually being asked, and at what level the speaker is approaching the subject. They may also need to understand the speaker's intention and the wider context of the conversation. Much of this, unfortunately, may be invisible even to the speaker. Ideas that once required conscious effort may have become part of their normal way of thinking. The speaker no longer notices every premise beneath their words, because those premises have already been integrated into their cognitive apparatus. This is what we call the cost of understanding. It is the time, attention, knowledge, and cognitive effort required to reconstruct enough of another person's path of thought to understand what their words are doing. Sometimes this cost is paid mainly by the listener. Sometimes the speaker reduces it by explaining more carefully, introducing examples, or defining unfamiliar concepts. Sometimes the medium itself helps, through diagrams, footnotes, visualizations, or the possibility of asking follow-up questions. In a successful conversation, this cost is often distributed between everyone involved. But paying this cost does not mean reproducing every thought or emotional state experienced by the speaker. Perfect access to another mind is impossible. What really matters is functional reconstruction. The listener must recover enough of the structure to preserve the relevant relationships between ideas. They need to understand why one premise leads to another, which distinction the argument depends on, and what kind of response would actually address the point being made. But this reconstruction requires effort, and when that effort is not made, something else may take its place. Instead of following the speaker's inferential path, the listener may follow the first association activated by the surface of the words. A person hears a familiar term, connects it with something already present in their own mind, and begins responding to that association. From their perspective, they are still participating in the original conversation. In practice, however, they may have moved on to a different path. We call this process inferential associative substitution, where the inferential trajectory of the speaker is replaced by the nearest associative trajectory available to the listener. In this sense, the general topic may remain the same. Both people may still appear to be talking about artificial intelligence, morality, consciousness, politics, or religion. Yet the structure of the original question has disappeared. The level of analysis has changed, a crucial distinction has been ignored, or the relationship between the premises has been lost. This is why two people can use the same vocabulary and still fail to discuss the same idea. Imagine that one person is asking whether an artificial system could develop an internal moral framework. The listener hears the words artificial intelligence and morality and immediately begins talking about corporate regulation, robot wars, or science fiction scenarios. These may all be relevant topics in a broader sense, but they do not necessarily answer the question that was asked. because the listener has not entered the speaker's trajectory of thought. They have followed their own semantic activation and experienced it as understanding. It is worth noting that association itself is not a failure. Associative thinking can produce analogies, unexpected connections, and creative discoveries. Many valuable conversations develop precisely because one idea activates another. The problem begins when an associative response takes the place of an inferential one, while the listener remains unaware that the substitution has occurred. Several factors can produce this situation. The first is a simple lack of reconstructive resources. At a particular moment, the listener may lack the necessary knowledge, attention, working memory, or conceptual vocabulary. The argument may be too unfamiliar, too compressed, or simply too demanding under the circumstances. A tired person reading a complicated message on a phone may be unable to reconstruct a line of reasoning they could have understood under better conditions. The second factor is pragmatic. The listener may possess the ability to understand more deeply, but decide, consciously or unconsciously, that the conversation does not deserve that level of effort. A rough interpretation is enough to preserve social contact, signal participation, or produce a quick reply. Many everyday conversations operate successfully at this level. We do not reconstruct the full cognitive background of every casual remark because it's simply too demanding. Yet difficulties arise when the same low-cost strategy is used in a conversation that depends on conceptual precision. Then, the listener adopts a simplified representation, but responds with the confidence appropriate to a much deeper understanding. The third factor is defensive. To understand a difficult statement, a person may first need to admit that they do not yet understand it. For someone whose identity depends strongly on being knowledgeable, intelligent, or well-informed, this admission can feel more threatening than it appears. The problem is no longer limited to the content of the conversation, but begins to affect the person's image of themselves. Therefore, a quiet dissonance may emerge. I should understand this because I am the kind of person who understands such things. If I do not understand it, perhaps I am not the person I believe myself to be. The nearest association can then fill the gap. It supplies immediate content where reconstruction would require uncertainty, patience, and effort. At the same time, it protects something we call the listener's epistemic identity. They can continue to experience themselves as someone who understands and has an informed opinion. In this case, the associative pathway performs two functions. It replaces the missing reconstruction and conceals the fact that reconstruction was missing. These mechanisms often overlap. A person may initially fail to understand because they lack context. That failure may then activate a defensive response. The associative answer that follows may finally erase awareness that a misunderstanding ever occurred. The listener does not merely fail to reconstruct the speaker's meaning. They fail to recognize that there was anything left to reconstruct. The cost of understanding is therefore more than a matter of intelligence or education. It concerns willingness, attention, context, trust, and the ability to tolerate temporary uncertainty. To understand another person, we sometimes need to suspend our first interpretation. We need to resist the nearest association and remain for a moment in the uncomfortable position of not yet knowing what the other person means. Only then can we begin to reconstruct the path that their words came from. The psychological processes involved here are not entirely new. Research has already examined shallow language processing, conversational grounding, the illusion of understanding, interpretive effort, and identity-protective cognition. The purpose of the model presented in this video is to bring these processes together. Model describes a common transition. The cost of understanding is left unpaid, so another person's inferential trajectory is not reconstructed, and the listener replaces it with an associative trajectory of their own. The result may still look like communication. Both people speak, both recognize the subject, both produce meaningful sentences. Yet somewhere between one mind and the other, the original structure of meaning has been lost. With respect, Peter Eidos.